but on the slide label, it may just say something like neuron. Now, where did they get the tissue to make this slide? They literally took the spinal cord of a cow, and you can buy those at a slaughterhouse. And then they laid it out and cut thin sections of it, put those sections on slides, stained them, fixed them so that the tissue would not deteriorate, and you got a slide of neurons. Now, in addition to neurons, there is a lot of other tissue that makes up the spinal cord and brain of an animal. So I don't want you to get the impression that your brain is 100% neurons. But in fact, the number of cells that make up your brain and spinal cord is greatly, the neurons are greatly outnumbered by neuroglial cells, or sometimes they're just abbreviated glial cells. This is basically the connective tissue of the central nervous system. And we're going to see that on this slide. For example, all of these big red areas that are kind of diffuse, that's that neuroglia. And in this image that I'm projecting now, all of these dark objects, and I know they're not in sharp focus, and yours are, these are the neurons. So the neurons are not occupying the entire tissue. You know, when you looked at epithelial tissue previously, everything you saw was epithelial cells. But now when we look at the nerve tissue, the nerve cells are very sparse compared to the neuroglial cells. Now, increase the magnification from 4x to 10x. And now our field is magnified 100 times. And what I'm going to do now is find what I think to be as an ideal specimen so that we can identify parts. So on page 155 of your lab manual, 155, you have a diagram at the bottom of the page on the left side that has been labeled. And on the opposite side of the page, you have a photograph that has not been labeled. And they imply that there are 5 parts that you're supposed to label. You need to do so because these are parts you could be asked on lab exam 3, which is 3 weeks from today. Okay, this is as clear as I can get this projected image. I hope you're looking at your slide because you'll find that it is much clearer than this projected image. And I'm asking you to focus on a cell, a single cell called a neuron, like this one right here. And I encourage you to label the parts on page 155 on that photograph. Just like any other cell, the largest area of the cytoplasm and its enclosed nucleus is called the cell body. So on that photograph, the cell body would be structure number 3 that they have pointed to but have not labeled.
So the black thing is the cell body?
Yes, but it's when you look at the real slide, instead of this lousy image, it will be very... it's not black, it's a shade of red, but the nucleus is black. And I know you can't see it from your standpoint, but right about here is the nucleus of this neuron, telling you this thing is one cell.
So a neuron is one cell?
A neuron is one nerve tissue cell. So we've got cell body and nucleus. Now the other parts of the neuron are cytoplasmic projections. Think of them as being something like the pseudopods on an amoeba, except they are not contractile. And I selected this example because you can clearly see that there is one long projection here, and there are multiple ones here. I like to think of them as pointing in opposite directions relative to that cell body. All right? So this one's pointing east and these are pointing west, or whatever you want to call it. Now the single long one is called what? Look at your diagram. It's called an axon. And the multiples, shorter ones, are called dendrites. All right? Be sure that you can distinguish those on a neuron. And again, all of this other pink tissue that you see here is this neuroglia, and you can tell it's made of cells because what are all these dark objects that are small in size?
Nucleus.
What are these little dark things? They're the nuclei of those neuroglial cells. So there's a bunch of them there. And that's what you see whenever you look at a cross-section of a piece of brain or spinal cord, which is what this is. Questions about the parts of a neuron? Everyone's confident they can identify them? And if not, I'll be happy to help you. But if you are confident, you can put your slide back in the box, your scope away in the cabinet, and your slide box over on the shelf.